Welcome to another Black Marble BiteSize. This is the third in a series of interviews with our Microsoft Most Valuable Professionals. I'm Jessica Saxby-Brown, Business Development Manager at Black Marble and interviewer of this session. On our virtual sofa today, we have our Chief Information Officer, Andy Dawson. So let's get started. Andy, could you please tell us a little bit more about yourself, your specialist technology areas, and why you've been recognised as a Microsoft Most Valuable Professional?
Hi, my name's Andy Dawson. I'm the CIO at Black Marble. So I look after most of our internal IT and provision for things like Office 365 and so on. My area of technology specialization is particularly SharePoint. That's where I really started working, but I also do a lot of work with Office 365 as well in general, so quite a lot of the tools across Office 365. So I've been awarded MVP status based on the community work that I do. So I've done quite a lot of work for local charities, helping them, and particularly at the moment, people seem to be needing quite a lot of help getting up and working remotely and so on. So being available to answer questions, being able to help people and solve problems and so on has meant that I've been able to help some local charities. I've also in the past helped run various community events, including DDD, and done some speaking engagements and that sort of thing as well. So yeah, that'll be the main reason for being an MVP anyway.
So you've got a webinar coming up titled "We're All in This Together" with Microsoft Teams and Office 365. So could you start off by giving us a brief overview of what this session will cover?
So the session is really looking at Office 365 as a whole and how it can help people collaborate and work together effectively. In the past, we've done plenty of talks around just Microsoft Teams and that sort of thing, but there are a number of other tools available within Office 365 that can really help people collaborate and work well together. So I'm really trying to bring everything together under one umbrella to give some information and show how people can work effectively together using a variety of the tools from Office 365.
Office 365 has such a vast suite of services. Do you have a favourite set of applications that you'd recommend for someone who's starting in their Office 365 journey?
So based on my background, which is SharePoint, the obvious answer is certainly SharePoint. And SharePoint has grown and evolved enormously over the last few years and has become a really, really useful tool, not just for storing documents and information, but also for providing a published intranet style solution to allow you to get news and stories out to people within the organization. Now, I think SharePoint still really is my favorite tool of Office 365, but there are a number of others in there that are certainly rising up through the ranks quite quickly, in particular Microsoft Teams. And that's another one that people really should be keeping their eye on to see where it goes next.
Obviously, Microsoft Teams has become an essential application for our current remote working situation. What do you see are the benefits of using Microsoft Teams, and how's it evolved over the past year?
So there's been an enormous amount of work done on Microsoft Teams over the last year or so. It's made enormous strides forward in terms of sort of functionality and so on. So in terms of benefits, Teams has been excellent. We use it extensively within Black Marble and work together very effectively using both Teams and the tools that are available within it. Even to the extent of just sort of quick phone calls, quick video calls, and that sort of thing. That makes life much easier. In terms of evolution, the Teams team are putting an awful lot of effort into the product and are moving it forward very quickly. In particular, the large view of the number of people that we've got within a meeting has been incredibly useful. And the other one I particularly like is the auditorium view, which gives you a much better feel of being sat in front of a selection of people rather than just having a screen full of small squares. So I think both of those have worked very well, and those are things that the Teams team have worked on quite extensively over the last year.
As CIO of Black Marble, you're responsible for the management of our IT department. So how did you prepare and ensure that Black Marble could efficiently work remotely in the current climate?
So we were actually quite lucky in many ways, because we've actually always had people working remotely. We've always made provision for people to be able to work when they're away on business and that sort of thing. So we had an awful lot of systems in place already to allow us to do that. We also made the move to Office 365 some time ago as well, And essentially the combination of those two things allowed us to actually transition very much to remote working with almost no work on my part whatsoever. So we make a few of our internal systems available via a variety of methods, which means that everybody can get access to things that they need. We also still use something called direct access, which is a Microsoft solution originally implemented some years ago, that allows us access to our internal network, and that has been very valuable to us. As part of that, our move to Office 365 several years ago has also meant that we've made almost no change when it came to working remotely. It doesn't really matter, as far as Office 365 is concerned, we're remote whether we're working from the office or working from home. So there's very little change there whatsoever. We have strengthened our security a little bit using things like multi-factor authentication, just to make sure that things are as protected as they can possibly be when we're accessing Office 365. So a big part of Office 365 that we use day to day is SharePoint Online. We store all of our documentation in there that we generate as a company, and we use it to effectively collaborate with each other. And there's a whole variety of capabilities that brings to the table that allow us to work very effectively together. Even just something as simple as being able to collaboratively work on a document together at the same time has proved invaluable to us wherever we are in the world.
Now, you mentioned the use of SharePoint Online. What would you say are the advantages of migrating to SharePoint Online as opposed to staying on premise?
The main advantage, certainly from an IT point of view, of moving to SharePoint Online is that I don't have to patch SharePoint anymore. Microsoft deals with all of that under the hood, so I never have to worry about it, and we've never seen any issues with Microsoft dealing with that behind the scenes for us. Staying on premise, yes, people do still do that, and they feel the need to do that, but there's an awful lot of overhead around that, looking after the servers, looking after patching of SharePoint, making sure everything's continuing to run and so on, along with things like backup and so on of all your databases. And certainly our SharePoint continues to grow, and the volume of data that we've got there means that that would become quite onerous over time. Moving to SharePoint Online has meant that we've had very little work to do on that front. We just put our data into SharePoint. Microsoft deals with backing it up for us and making sure that we have continuous availability. We can get access to it from anywhere on the planet. We don't have to worry about VPN solutions or anything like that. And as I mentioned earlier, we use multi-factor authentication with Microsoft Azure AD to ensure security for people working outside the office.
Now, on the topic of utilising cloud services, at Black Marble, we specialise in the Azure platform. What is it about Azure that you would recommend?
Azure is great for a whole variety of reasons, but one of the reasons that I do like is the speed of implementation of things. Certainly, we as a small organization, we are reasonably adept at providing new servers, new capabilities for people within the organization as required. But even so, that does still take some time to organize and arrange. With Azure, I can run up a virtual machine, or I can run up another service quite happily, and it only takes a few minutes to actually get up and running and so on. So the speed with which we can deploy things out it provides us with a significant advantage over doing things on premise.
So where do you see cloud platforms such as Azure making the most impact in an organization?
That depends very much on the size of the organization. So a small organization may be able to start their journey dealing with IT without ever installing any servers on premise. We've seen a number of small companies starting up where they just take the Azure solutions and never install any servers on premise whatsoever. And that means that they can move in a very, very agile manner and get up and running incredibly quickly without having to spend thousands of pounds on infrastructure that they have to have running in an office somewhere. So for a small company, that sort of thing can be incredibly beneficial. For a larger company, they perhaps have different priorities, but it can also improve their agility and help them move towards a serverless environment in perhaps a more gradual way. Lots of companies that we deal with have on-premise infrastructure already, but there's no reason that they can't move some of that to the cloud to reduce the workload on people within the organization, perhaps patching, that sort of thing. And the use of things like platform as a service, the use of software as a service and so on allows them to actually make sort of big strides without having to spend a lot of time working on infrastructure within their organization.
So is there any advice that you'd give to a company who's just starting out in their cloud journey?
Yes. So I would strongly suggest that a company starting out in their cloud journey actually starts relatively slowly and decides what it is they're looking for as a first priority up front. Don't try and do everything at once. There's too much to do if you're trying to do everything at once, and you won't make very much progress. Small steps is the best way to move forward. Pick something that you want to do, something that's high priority, and deal with that. Do that. Move to the cloud with just that one workload in the first instance. Get used to it, get used to its foibles, and then see how that goes. That will help shape the plan for the future areas that you wish to move to the cloud as well.
Now, you've also co-written a white paper titled Positively Impacting Your Organisation with Collaborative Working. What kind of topics do you discuss in this?
So the white paper discusses collaboratively working and the advantages that working together with Office 365 and the various components that contains can have for the organisation. In particular, the use of Microsoft Teams and how that can help bring an organisation together, and the tools that you can use within Microsoft Teams to more effectively collaborate and work with each other.
And finally, do you have a collaborative working top tip to leave us with?
So one of the things that I particularly miss is the office interactions with people. Video calls are okay. You know, we can talk to each other and that's fine, but just that general level of background chatter that quite often goes on in an office. So what we've taken to doing is when we're working collaboratively on a project or a document or something like that, we have an open Teams call going. Now, this means that people can dip in and out, they can just chat, they can talk, and that starts to replicate some of the background chatter that you used to get in the office. Okay, it's not quite the same, but it has certainly helped with us and allowing us to move forward and collaboratively work together.
Thanks, Andy, for that useful insights. As mentioned earlier in the interview, Andy will be presenting a webinar on the 1st of December when he'll elaborate on many of the topics that we've just discussed in more depth. You can also get in touch with us if you'd like a copy of Andy's white paper. Thank you.